all of you who came here to honor our Father, who now is in heaven. Stop that. You know, typically when they start a service like this, you'll hear someone who will pick up and read the eulogy. I don't want to insult your intelligence that you already have read it. Oh, and it's in a program. So instead, I want to talk to you just briefly about his remaining days. His pronouncement of death. Lindy Jo Bost. Sunrise, September 11, 1927. Sunset, November 9, 2011. 94 years, 51 days. Lindy was a strong and resilient man that we nearly lost in 2017. But he rallied, came back, had to learn how to walk and how to talk again because he gave us 4 more years. Or at least that's how I thought that he was giving us 4 more years. Unbeknownst to us, he'd been Mother's caretaker as she was suffering from her own cognitive decline. It was later in 2018 she was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, which not only was robbing her of her cognitive functions, but it was filling her mind with false illusions that to her was a reality. When I came to find out about this, and he called me over to the house, and when she started describing these scenes, I looked over her shoulder, and Dad just kind of went. Later on, when I got alone, I said, "How long has this been going on, Dad?" He said, "Well, about a year and a half." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Your brother swore me to secrecy." And once he said, "I promised," he meant it. So for a long time, he was dealing with that. He remained her most steadfast supporter. He rallied that year in 2017 because he made a promise till death do us part, and he wasn't going to leave her early. He came back, he fought back, and he was with us. The whole time he was overseeing and looking after Mother. When she passed just September 1st, it was only 10 weeks later that he went to join her. Their life together spanned 73 years. The last 69 and a half years as man and wife. When Mother passed, there was no doubt that a great part of him died as well. His grief was inconsolable for a few weeks, and then his own decline became apparent. The clinical diagnosis was Takebutsu syndrome, aka a broken heart. It's a non-ischemic cardiomyopathy, let's say that many times, in which there's a sudden temporary weakening of the muscular portion of the heart. But this time it wasn't temporary. At 94 years of age, you've lost quite a bit of your battery reserve. And when this came about, you start losing your important muscular function of pumping blood. He started becoming short of breath. He was tired. He was weak. He stayed with us and Greg that first few weeks after Mother's death, and we just started seeing he was sleeping 14, 15 hours a day. Toward the end, he was sleeping 20 plus hours a day. The emotional and psychological phenomenon of this syndrome, it's a physical ramification very similar to congestive heart failure. You just lose that same function. Dad became weaker, and the sleep, I want to speak about sleep. Sleep to someone who is in sorrow and dealing with a bereavement so strong and so sudden is a form of coping. It's an insulation to the trauma that you've done. When you can shut out the world and retreat into this cocoon, you don't have thoughts, you don't have dreams. You're just in a void. And I speak from personal experience. As the weeks passed, Dad began to lose his own cognitive abilities. In the last week, he spoke of Mother in the present tense. One night, after finished, I typically go by there after work and spend a couple hours. I had him where he'd eat a little bit. He wanted to go to the bathroom. And as we were coming out of the bathroom, he said, he was thinking that there was like a luncheon or a dinner they're supposed to be going to. He said, "I think your mother's already gone ahead to that dinner." And I said, "Yes, Dad, she's already gone." I just stayed in the present tense with her. When we get out to the hallway and he looks at me and says, I'm really tired, I don't want to go. I said, well, let's go to bed. I get him dressed, I lay him down in bed. And as I lay him there and you get on this pillow and I'm covering him up, you become the caretaker and you're tucking in your son. I'm tucking in my dad with love. And he looks up and he said, did you say that Mother went ahead? And then, because we have the Bollens, we do like a little sense of humor, I said, yes, Dad, I know it's hard to believe, Mother's actually gone ahead, and she's waiting for you. That's not something you heard too often. And he cracked one eye open, and he looked at me, and he gave a sly little grin like, that's for damn sure. And then he passed on into slumber. On Tuesday morning of this week, Dad slipped from this heavenly realm, and he once again is reunited with his love, Bettye Bollen. May they rest in peace.
I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. I keep the ends out for the tie that binds. Because you're mine, I walk the line. I find it very, very easy to be true. I find myself alone when each day's through. Yes, I'll admit that I'm a fool for you. Because you're mine, I walk the line. As sure as night is dark and day is light, I keep you on my mind both day and night. And happiness I've known proves that it's right. Because you're mine, I walk the line. You've got a way to keep me on your side. You give me cause for love that I can't hide. For you I know I'd even try to turn the tide. Because you're mine, I walk the line. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. I keep the ends out for the tie that binds. Because you're mine, I walk the line.
All throughout my history, your faithfulness has walked beside me. The winter storms made way for spring. In every season, from where I'm standing, I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life, all over my life. I see your promises in fulfillment all over my life, all over my life. Help me
What a fun walk down memory lane. I'm Kendall. I am Lindy's granddaughter, Lindy Jr.'s daughter, and he was Papa Doc to me, so I'll refer to him that way when I speak today. As I was gathering thoughts for this time together, I remembered that in 2017 I wrote him a letter, and I read this to him when he was in the hospital. For those that don't know, he had a brilliant idea to go over to my home and attempt to cut down a tree by himself at 89 years old. We weren't home and no one really knows what happened, but what happened that day put him in the hospital for roughly 90 days, and as my dad mentioned, he had a rough go and had to learn to do everything again. So at the stage that I wrote this letter, it was August 2017, and he was at a decision point where he had to decide, fight or flight. So I read this letter to him in the hospital, and I'm going to read it to you guys today because it says a lot about how I felt about him and a lot of who he was as a person. And I'm going to try to do it without crying, so wish me luck. Papa Doc, there's a whole lot I love about you, and I thought you could use a reminder of just how special you are to me, to all of us. I've always known you were proud of me, but you know how proud I am to say you're that I am Lindy Bollen's granddaughter. You're a great man. Heck, I think my letter actually said hell, but I edited it out for today. Heck, you're a great man. It doesn't even cover it. You're phenomenal. I love your sense of humor and your clever jokes. You always have one. I love your strong conviction of values and principles. I love your thoughtfulness. I love the way you love Bobo. I've always loved your fierce determination and confidence. Fierce emphasized. I love that you still thought of yourself as able-bodied enough to take down one more tree. But oh, how I wish you hadn't actually tried. Your intentions were pure, you just wanted to help. I could be mad at you for trying that stunt, but the I can do it my own damn self attitude is a huge part of who you are, and I would never want that to change. I love the way you call me Kendallitis. I love that you always have a date book and a pen in your shirt pocket. I love the way you love my husband like he's your own grandson. I love that you've worn an orange ribbon on your shirt for 13 years without fail. I love that you don't put up with any nonsense from anybody. I love that I grew up with you as my grandpa. I'm not sure I've ever truly thanked you for the things you've done for me, but now that I'm a parent, I know what a blessing it is for my children to have involved, adoring grandparents that want to do special things for their grandkids. You and Bobo created lots of great experiences for us. Trips to TCBY for yogurt, as he called it. Peach picking, ski trips, lake trips, sleepovers, and RV adventures are all memories I carry with me. So thank you, a million times over. You are hands down the toughest man I've ever met, in mind and in body. You're always worried about everybody else before yourself, so I imagine right now you do not like the fuss that we're all making over you. But if you only knew how loved and adored you were, you'd know that we would do anything to bring you comfort, reassurance, and joy right now. It's the least we can do for a man who's done so much for us. That I can do it my own damn self attitude is what put you here, and it's what's going to get you out. Your sweetheart still needs you, and we've got your 90th birthday planned. You are my hero, and I love you, but I surely hope by now you know that. Hugs, which is how he always ended his letters. If you ever got on his email list, you know what I'm talking about. Obviously, he rallied, and we got 4 more years with him, and he had a purpose and a calling on his life. God wasn't finished with him yet. He still had work to do. In these past few months, I've been reflecting on Bobo and Papa Doc and their life, and one of the things that has stuck out so strongly for me was his devotion. He was unwavering in his devotion to her, and there's a couple of examples of that. One is a charm bracelet that he made for Bettye, and Lisa is wearing it today. You should take a look at it if you haven't seen it. He handmade this charm bracelet, melted the gold himself in the lab at his dental office, and handcrafted dozens of charms to represent their life, their memories, their adventures, and their hobbies. That is a beautiful symbol of love. And no offense to my amazing husband, but that's a lot to compete with. That is some serious romance right there. Papa Doc was busy, but he made time for that, and I'm just blown away by it. So take a look at that today if you haven't seen it. And recently, after Bobo passed, I asked Papa Doc how many times he thinks he went to Kroger for her. When she was hosting something, he said easily 4 to 5 times that day. And he teared up and he said, and I'd have gone 10 and been happy about it. And I believe that. I don't recall ever hearing him say a cross word about her or to her. And that's a huge model for me. What a lesson for all of us to see. Someone who is so unwavering that he would never say a word. That is love. In fact, I don't remember him complaining about anything ever. What a model for us. He was selfless. He put his family first. He put others first. It's clear he would have done anything to fight for his family. Like literally fight. I think that man was walking around looking for somebody just to scrap with. And I know you guys all have stories, but I pity the fool that tried to cross Lindy Bollen. I think his sheer willpower and intimidation alone could have slayed any giant. I don't think he ever threw punches, but boy was he ready, right? I remember a particular ski trip when I was a preteen and everything embarrassed me. And we get to the bottom of the ski slopes and a young 20-something lift ticket agent is using profanity. And Papa Doc chewed him up and spit him out in front of us, and I was mortified. And when he met Keith, my now husband, we were in college. We got ready to leave their house, and later Keith told me what he said. He said, if you ever strike in anger, don't look behind. I'll be there. He was ready to rumble, wasn't he? But I don't think he threw punches. He just had a posture of confidence and strong, strong conviction of values. And that's what I see shining through in all those stories, that he didn't budge on what he believed. And I think our world could use a lot more of that today, amen? He had a tough exterior, but a tender heart. And all it took was a little time with him to see that. He had the best jokes. I've been thinking lately, where did he get his material? Was there someone in his childhood or military days or dental school that filled him with all those good jokes? I'll never know, but he always had one. Even in the hospital, when he couldn't say much, he was cracking jokes with all those nurses, and they adored him. The world is not going to be the same without Lindy Bollen. He leaves a huge void that simply cannot be filled. But heaven is getting more and more beautiful to me every day. Since my brother Kyle passed at age 16 in 2003, our family has experienced what I call winks from heaven. And they're beautiful reminders of what we get to look forward to. And on Tuesday, after Doc passed, there was a little bit of a light show at Mom and Dad's. Flickering lights have always been one of our little reminders of Kyle, and on Tuesday they went crazy for 20 minutes, and Mom videoed it. And I hear that, and I see that, and I just think it's like Morse code from heaven saying, we're here, we're together, and it's amazing, and we love you. What a beautiful gift that is for us here today. Any tears you see from us and the family, I think it just comes from an overflowing of gratitude. We're all at peace for him, we're at peace that they're together. We're just so thankful for who he was in our lives and the memories we had. He's home, and he's so happy, and I'm so happy for him. Next, we have a song, and years ago, I don't know why I remember this. It may have been in a church service, but this particular song was sung, and Bobo leaned over to me and said, Lindy loves this song, and it should be sung at his funeral one day. So I tucked away that little memory, and what a gift we have in Lindy's youngest grandson, Colby. He's going to sing it for you today here in Fir Tree.
O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars great thou art! How great thou art! Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! And when I think that God his Son, not sparing, sent him to die, I scarce can take it in, that on a cross, my burdens gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away my sin. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! When Christ shall come with shout of acclamation and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart, and I shall bow in humble adoration. My God, how great thou art! Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! How great thou art! How great thou art!
You know, when I sing in the shower, I sound a lot like that. But there's something about the acoustics in that. Yes, thank you so much, Carly. I have to make some notes so I can follow this because there's so many things I can say about Lindy and Dad. Strength of character. That was his defining moment. If you heard Kendall talk, you know the family, you've been around Dad, it's his strength of character. And he was a character, but he stood by his convictions. He garnered respect in his straightforward approach to business and life. He led by example. For us children, we learned and watched how Mother and Dad interacted with each other. I still remember as a young child seeing Dad giving Mother a hug and give a pet. You saw a picture of them water skiing. He'd scoot up there and reach over and pat her on the fanny and give her a little wink and scoot back. They shared a connection. It taught me that, you know, you need to display that love with your wife, with your spouse, with your children. He took care of his family. He didn't show any favoritism. He actually had all three of us thinking that I was the special one. You know? Sorry, you know, Greg thinks he's special, and Lisa thinks she's special, but, you know, he made us all feel that way. And he always supported us. He supported us in whatever we're doing. Mother, when he bought a plane, he said, we're going flying. Mother said, I'm learning how. I'm not going to be up there and not know what to do should you check out. So he supported that. And he would let her fly half the time we were going somewhere. Sports. Yeah, he was athletic. But he encouraged us, and he would follow us. Mother got into softball, and I mean, no matter where they were playing, he was right there. He would go to college football games, wherever Greg was playing, watching him play. In high school, my sister was in the band. He was one of the I don't know, Lisa will correct me later, assuredly. It was called the band Boosters. She didn't even wait. She didn't even wait. She let me know right now. It's the Booster Club. He would work that concession stand for the Booster Club to help raise money. And sometimes he would miss the performance that his daughter was doing at halftime because he wanted to be supported. And it's not just about me, it's about how I can support people. He was an adoptive father figure to many of our friends. And I'm not making this up. I had friends that would come to the house. Greg had friends. Lisa had friends. And one of my friends walked up to me today and he shook hands with me and he said, "Your family made me feel part of the family." He said, "I didn't even want to leave to go home. I wanted to just move right in for my mother had a great sense of humor. My dad was very, laid back. He didn't really talk a lot, but, he stayed with it. Mike, you didn't know this, but when I introduced you the first time, you and Randy were at the house, and when y'all left, you said, "Mr. Bollen, nice to meet you." Lesson number one that I really took to heart was when they left, I told my dad, I said, "Hey, Dad, I want to apologize." He said, "For what?" I said, "Well, when they left, they called you Mr. Bollen." He looked at me and he said, "Son," I said, they didn't call you Dr. Bollen." He said, "Son, that and 50 cents will buy you a cup of coffee. Big deal." Dad, it's $2.50 a day. So I learned that a title is just that. It's just a title. You stand on yourself. And that's what he did. And it was not, I so appreciate Mike sharing that because I always felt that in my heart. Lisa's experienced that with friends that would come over. Greg's had friends that would come over. It was an adoptive, it was the place to be. Oh, he was frugal. Sometimes to a fault. I will say this. My parents did not smoke. They did not drink. One time when he bought a boat, some of the other guys said, "Well, Lindy, where you got 3 kids, you're raising them. How are you buying a boat?" Because he got a good deal because he paid cash. And they were kind of, "Well, how'd you do that?" And he pointed to us and said, "Well, I don't spend it going up in smoke, and I'm not drinking all the time, so those pennies add up." So it was a life lesson to them. Later on, he's in the hospital, and they would ask about these certain habits. He said, "No, I've never smoked." And he said, "Alcohol," he said, "the closest thing I've ever come to intoxication was the kiss of a beautiful woman." I've heard these so much I could almost categorize them and call them out by number. Kimball mentioned that he had a good sense of humor. When he had that broken neck, he really couldn't speak very well. We actually developed like a Ouija board so he could point to things so we could kind of fill it out. Remember that? But the nurses would come in, and as he was rallying out of this coma state, I was there when it happened. The nurse came in and said, "Dr. Bollen, how are you feeling today?" And his hands came up from the bed, and they did this. And they went back down, and I said, "Let me interpret that sign language." What he said was, when you asked him how he's feeling, this means both hands every chance I get. You know it. You heard it. So, frugal. I'm going to tell some quick ones here real close in this last couple of decades. Back in the 80s or so, he decided he needed a pickup. Well, he didn't get a man-sized pickup. No. He bought this used, battered up Volkswagen diesel pickup. And it rattled and made noise, but it was a pickup.
The bumper was a third off, too.
The bumper was hanging on. So, there is a dental meeting in Hot Springs. And somehow I ended up going down with someone, and I knew that Dad was coming, and I'll just catch a ride back with Dad. So I don't know, I didn't even think about this. We're finishing up the meeting, and you go out, and there's the valet who's going to pick up cars. And we're standing there waiting, and he hands the key to someone. I'm seeing these, BMWs and Cadillacs full of, I'm standing there with my dad. I'm proud of my dad. I can see how the older generation respected him and all that. And here comes this rattle trap with this bumper, part of it hanging off. And he pulls up and he gets up, gives him $1. And as I'm turning to him and I see some of my peers, and at first I'm starting to think, this is just not a pretty sight. And I got in the car and I thought, lesson number 2 from Dad. You're not what you project through your possessions. You are who you project in your character to your friends and to your people. And they will know and respect you for that, not by all this other stuff. It's kind of like the Bible verse, where do you put your value? Because all this stuff goes to rust, but your character remains the same. Thank you, Dad. He had a place on Lake Hamilton. Had a party bars. And those of you who have been to the lake and have a boat that's docked in the water, you recognize that gasoline prices are higher because you're a captured audience. Not to Lindy Bollen. He had 4, 5, maybe 6 5-gallon cans of gas that he would fill up, and he would carry those down to the dock and pour them in so we could go out. But he saved some money. But the best one, the best story, Kendall mentioned going on a ski trip where he dressed down this whippersnapper. Well, we grew up going on ski trips thinking everybody did this. A hamburger on the mountaintop is $15 for one. We had a loaf of bread that we prepared our meals, a sandwich of bologna cheese and everything else, and we'd go into the snack area and cop their condiments to put on there because it's free, right? Well, he took the grandkids out on a ski trip, and Kendall told the story, so I'm surprised she didn't mention this part of it. He gets up and he wants a cup of water. And when they charged him a nickel, he canceled his entire order. Kendall's reaching in your pocket for something to die. I got a nickel. He was so frugal when he took us on these ski trips. We couldn't rent a locker to put our after ski boots in where we could walk comfortable. No. And he didn't park up close because it was $20. We parked where it was free. And we wore our ski boots and carried our skis like robots. Now, who am I to complain? This man had a broken ankle in college days, and it was, janky. He had one of the early replacements. And yet, he did it. By God, you can too. Peer pressure to Lindy Bollen. He set the mark. There wasn't peer pressure for him to yield because there was not a yielding. And he was not extremely left or extremely right, both in his political beliefs or anything else. He was very strong right down to a moderate level. But when he was on a conviction, as she said, that's where he's going to be. He was a servant to his community. As a dentist, he received a lot of praise from other dentists. Being in Jacksonville with the military base, he treated a lot of military dependents. And some of these dependents obviously would go to a different location. He actually showed me some letters from dentists in other states that complimented his fine dental work. Back in the 60s and 70s, one of the best restorative procedures and aesthetics was doing gold inlays and onlays. It's a lost art, am I not? Right? Those are my dental colleagues. He did some of the finest work. And a neighbor of ours that came by at visitation was shaking Greg's in my hand, and he said, when you're going to put these gold onlays in way back in the 60s, he told me, these will last your lifetime. And Mr. Stringfellow smiled and said, and they're still with me now, and my lifetime is drawing to an end. He did some excellent dental work. He took care of his patients. He didn't sell them anything. He sold them health. He preached about preventative care. Let me fix your mouth up, but now you've got to come in and take care of it yourself. He had a respect of his community as a leader. He had a respect in his church. He was asked to serve as a deacon at the First Baptist Church in Jacksonville. Because of his commitment and his leadership. Which leads me to church and some of the reflections and training that we learned without being taught to, but by example. In the 90s, he bought a place on the lake. And after we'd gone there for several weekends and enjoyed it, he even said, I think I asked him the question, I said, Dad, how come as much as we went to the lake, how come you never did this at an earlier time when we were younger? We could go and spend the whole weekend. And he said, son, I know that we traveled and we do a day trip and come back and forth, but at a young age, I was afraid if I got a place on the lake that Sunday would roll around and we wouldn't necessarily roll out of bed and go to church. And your mother and I felt that you need to have a good upbringing and hear and come to your own conclusions and value the time. So yeah, we still got to go to the lake. We went on his day off, Wednesday. We'd go on Saturday. Sometimes on Sunday, we'd only go to Sunday school and skip out. But we would drive there. So did we miss out on anything? Absolutely not. And yet through that core value of showing by example, we learned, we processed, and we grew. Faith is the promise of the future. In 2 Samuel, I know this sounds strange for you, hearing me quote the scriptures. In 2 Samuel, David is lamenting his son's death. David, he'd done some things. He fell out of favor with God. And he was lamenting when his son fell ill. And he fasted and he prayed. He begged for forgiveness. Let this pass, let it be me. When he saw his servants and they found that this time had passed for his son, he got up, he cleaned himself. And he went and he ate and he had a feast. And it amazed his servants. Why are you doing this now? And David said, I can't bring him back, but I can go to him. It reminds me of the time when, the day after my own son's death, and I walked out of my bedroom, and my father, who has served as the rock of Gibraltar for our family. He was so strong and so steadfast, but he was sitting on the couch and he was a broken man. I've never seen this weakness. And it wasn't a weakness, it was an outpouring of his own love and grief. And I walked over and I sat next to him to console him, and he said, son, I've already lived a full life. That should have been me. Let Kyle have a full life. Something in my brain clicked, as it sometimes does. And I realized then that I had to become the rock. I had to stand up and be strong for my family. So lesson number 3 is, be prepared. Be prepared because you never know what's coming. And I took on that mantle, and I took it on, and it's a mantle I would do again. But it's because of what he led and showed me. In 1 Thessalonians 4, Kendall said it so well. If you see our tears, if you see our crying, it's not that we're grieving. We're not grieving because there is a circle of life, and all life comes to an end when time demands. Right now, our tears are tears of joy because Papa Doc and Bobo, after just 10 weeks of separation, they're reunited. And guess who's showing them the ropes? Kyle. So I got to tell you a little story about the light show. Kyle had a friend down the street from us, and he would go down to, correct me her name? Olivia. He would go down to Olivia's house, and again, her dad, and they would kind of tease back and forth, and in the family room, well, when he wasn't looking, Kyle would go over and unscrew a light bulb. Well, when he, later on, the next day or whatever, the dad would come in, he'd go turn the light on and be out. He'd go get a new light bulb, unscrew that, and put a new one in. I don't know how many light bulbs Mr. Shipman replaced, but that was high. So how do we associate lights with that? Jan and I started noticing these little observers, and one that really resonated was one evening, we took a walk, and it was night already. And as we were walking down the street, you know how the street light casts that glow. So we went from the darkness, and as we stepped into the arc of that light, that particular street light went off. We didn't think anything, we just kept going. But it was when we got to where the arc would be finishing, the light came back on. And we stepped out of that light. And from that moment on, we kept saying, all right, Kyle. Jan actually filmed this little light show. Now, I've told people, oh, it's a coincidence. Well, that poopaw, I don't care. It's ours. There's a light show going on. There's a celebration. Kyle is up there with Grandma and Grandpa. And they are saying, hey, come on. Take your time. Take your time. But when you get here, it's going to be fun. And I'll close with Psalm 23, verse 4. Yea, though I walk through the shadow of the valley of death, I will fear no evil. I fear no evil. I fear no death. I used to be afraid of death, but now I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of the style, the mannerisms. It's going to come for us all. But I would like to finish and conclude this to my family. Greg, listen. You're going to experience what's known as the year first. You've all heard that. You may have experienced it in some form or another. I know there's some people here that I've already talked with. They know exactly what I'm talking about. The year of first, our first Thanksgiving without Mother and Dad, their first birthday, Mother's Day, Father's Day. There was a time in the late 90s, my sister, their family, they were in Okinawa. And while they were in Okinawa, Mother and Dad decided, we should go over there and spend time with Madison and Lindy. So they flew halfway around the world. And I said, y'all, I think that's a great idea. Y'all go over there and you spend time with them. But as a 40-something-year-old, I woke up on Christmas morning like a little baby. Mom and Dad going here. Mama always gave me a gift. Daddy always shook my hand and told me Merry Christmas. And I said,
Dad always gave you $100.
And it was he was not a real shopper, but it was there was a Benjamin there. So that year first, I had that. And then I had my own serious year first. I ask that you not let it be something that brings grief or sorrow to you, because they led a full and wonderful life together. Let it be a reflection. Yes, we'll be sad. But instead, I'm lifting it up thinking, God, it's not what they gave to me in physical, it's what they gave to me in life. I am the product of that. You are the product of that. You carry this on. So hang in there. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for coming here to celebrate this life. And from here, I'll turn it to the director team.